to order. Irene, could you please read the required?
Yes, so just to everyone watching, this meeting is being conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order and 2920, which suspended certain requirements of the Brown Act. Attendees may join by using the Zoom link provided on the agenda. All attendees will be muted until they are called upon for public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon on your smart device, or you can dial *9 if you're using your telephone. And then please listen carefully for either the chair or clerk to address you by name or phone number, and then you will be given 3 minutes to make your public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. And could you go ahead and put the agenda on the screen?
Yes. Are you able to see it?
No. Can the rest of you see it? Oh, I can't see it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. Okay, very well. Thank you. All right. So any public comments on an item that it is not on the agenda for today?
No hands are raised, Chair.
Okay. Then I would like to see if there's any conflict of interest by anyone or any communication? None?
No communications, Chair.
Okay. So I would need for someone to move on approval of minutes. Any questions about the minutes? I was not at the meeting, but I read it and I'll be able to vote. So
I will move approval.
second? I need a second.
City Manager David Kelly, or I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And my dog is being fed, so he's having a fit. Okay, so we don't need to have a vote, correct?
Correct. If we have a first and the second, and then it's just asking if anyone else has any changes or is in opposition of the approval.
Okay, with no oppositions, I'll just have it into the record, please. And so we'll just go, since there are no outstanding items that need to be discussed, I would just like to see if there's any follow-up from the previous meeting, any discussion beyond the items for updates. David? Yes.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Vice Mayor, if I can, just to update on vegetation management activities. Since our last meeting, I was able to meet with a concerned citizen, Mr. Diggs, along with CAL FIRE and fire district personnel. We met at the trailhead of the open space, and there was a discussion about interest, particularly from the Clover Springs Association, in conducting vegetation management activities on the Porterfield Creek open space. The concerns relate to generally dry conditions, of course, but also the state of some of the vegetation and down debris within the open space. There was quite a robust discussion with Mr. Diggs I mean, luckily Cal Fire happened to be doing training that day, and we're on site. So we got the benefit of their expertise in terms of the discussion with Mr. Diggs. He has followed up with additional conversation or additional emails, really requesting that the city take the lead on vegetation management, and he'd like to see a lot of the understory removed or more heavily managed. The response that I provided him was that my recommendation would be to engage in a planning effort, planning discussion with the Cloverdale Fire District and Cal Fire to develop some strategies for management of the vegetation in the open space. And it might be something that could then be applied to other properties that are privately owned, in terms of some of the strategies and techniques that could be used to help manage vegetation. I did a little bit of research just in terms of what are some of the plans that have been developed for other open space type properties with in relative close proximity to Cloverdale. The most relevant example that I could find was a management plan that was prepared for the Fitch Mountain Park and Open Space Preserve. And of course, it's a very comprehensive management plan. What I thought was, I shared it with Irene. And Irene, if you can just do a screen share. Obviously this planning document pertains specifically to Fitch Mountain, and they hired a consultant to help prepare it. But in looking at some of the recommendations, and there's 5 objectives. I thought this might be something that I could review with Chief Jenkins, review with Cal Fire, and assess whether some of these objectives and some of the action steps might be appropriate in terms of vegetation management strategies that could be employed on our open space property. Some of these are, and I mean, if you can go to page 4, there's some narrative here just about the vegetation, but specifically some of the objectives really would be directed to the city in terms of education and enforcement. Certainly signage is key in prohibiting activities like cooking, smoking, and or having any kind of open sources of fire. It's kind of no brainer in my opinion in terms of strategies. But some of the other strategies I think which tend to be more in the realm of fire, particularly Cal Fire, include things such as managed burns, making sure that the vegetation that's removed is the most appropriate vegetation that should be removed for managing potential spread of fire during wildfires, and also controlling those conducting controlled burns and doing it in a way that minimizes any kinds of threats or impacts to the neighbors. And I know it's is part of this also involves considerable public outreach, because you certainly don't want to do a controlled burn without at least notifying the neighbors of that activity, of any kind of activity. But I wanted to share this with the subcommittee, and I think I guess I took it as a maybe a starting point for a conversation as to maybe what kind of strategies we might be able to engage in that make sense from the fire district's perspective, from the city's perspective, and also are within our budgetary and staffing means, because obviously we could dedicate a lot of resources to this open space property.
May I ask,
Yeah.
this was not included in the packet, right?
No, it was not. I
We would need to be able to read it prior to.
Yes, and I just wanted to introduce it again under the concept of the agenda of update on vegetation management activities, and just enable a discussion to see if there's opportunities for collaboration. And again, under the basis that Mr. Diggs at the last meeting did ask us to meet with him and talk about what kind of opportunities there were to conduct vegetation management activities on the open space. So I just wanted to kind of share this with our professionals, particularly in the firefighting field, to see if there's maybe some short, mid, and long-term strategies that may be worth further consideration.
Well, first I need to ask, is there a written document that shows who is doing what in the open space? Meaning who, in addition to upkeeping with vegetation, what else is there for fire safety and so on? Is there a particular practice that the fire district does and one that the city does? Or is that just not written anywhere?
Currently, we do not have a set of written policies and procedures relative to the open space. The Sonoma County Ag and Open Space would like us to prepare a plan for their review and consideration, since they maintain the easement on the property. So that is something we ultimately would need to be cognizant of. Is their input in terms of what kind of management practices we would utilize. Right now, it's real generally geared towards ensuring the trails offer safe passage, addressing kind of those immediate hazards, but we haven't developed a specific plan for addressing fire concerns. This is kind of a new pressing concern, I think, by some of the residents within Clover Springs.
Well,
Yeah, David. Oh, Martha, go ahead.
yes, no, because my thought is that we need to be able to have established guidelines by the fire district, by the city, so that when people come and start making demands that may not necessarily, I'm not referring necessarily to Mr. What's his name, Diggs?
Yeah, Mr. Diggs.
Yeah, to Mr. Diggs. But in case that there's some unreasonable requests, we can say, this is what we're doing and this is what it covers. So I think definitely we need to have something within the agreement. And I would like to hear from Chief Jenkins, what are the practices that the district has in our open space and maybe other open spaces throughout the county?
Well, for us on this specific property, we don't have the capability or funding or positions to build a comprehensive plan for something that really is, county property. So I'd really put some pressure on the county to own what this plan should be. And then we're a partner in helping to execute and provide, help with the vegetation management and things like that. There are areas outside of the county's footprint or parcels that we're working on vegetation management and preparation for some burning operations this spring. So we're doing some things, and we have the ability to throw some firefighters at that and do some ground clearance and make some things better. But ultimately, I need the county to have some ownership on their parcel. If the city is going to take responsibility for that, then we can work with the city and figuring out what we can do. I have personnel and manpower to throw it at the problem, but it may not be all encompassing as far as a plan that covers vegetation management from A to Z on their areas of responsibility.
I understand this is not solely owned by the county, is it, David?
Well, the property is owned by the city, but the technically, and I think this is what the chief is referring to, is the property, the open space largely located within the county or outside city limits.
Okay, so that delineation needs to be established more clearly, and perhaps that's where Chief Jenkins' suggestion is very, very valid. We need to know exactly what we're going to ask of the county and specific timelines, and that's where Chief Jenkins will be able to assist us better in establishing, which is the best time to do X, Y, or Z in order to be able to manage it away from fire season, and also given the limitations of budget and personnel.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or is it who's gonna provide this plan and give me the authority to put my firefighters on their property? It's really easy when we work with private landowners, but when the parcel is going to fall under the responsibility of the city, I think it would be easier. If it ends up falling on the responsibility of the county, that's okay, but we need some authority and approval of what we can and cannot do in regards to what trees we're going to limb up, how far in, what that looks like. And if I could get approval from either one of the entities, I can put firefighters on the ground tomorrow and start making some improvements with chippers and non-fire type of stuff. But it seems like the county potentially might want an all-comprehensive plan, or the city. If that's the case, we'll need that in place before we move forward. I don't want to get the district.
Definitely. No,
Yeah.
we definitely need to have something establishing guidelines and who's in charge of what. And as I said, in terms of personnel, in terms of budget and timing, because it has to be a common ground for everybody, so that it doesn't interfere with the standard and required activities. And definitely have to be very concerned in terms of protection of firefighters and other personnel. So, but at this point, all we have is the city maintaining what is required for our local residents. David, please expand on this somewhat.
Sure, and the reason I brought this forward, because I think the chief's pointing to the need for a comprehensive management plan, or at least a plan that provides an overview of what strategies make sense for this particular property. And I know from talking to concerned residents, they want something done right away. And my response was that it was important for us to work collaboratively as the city with the fire district, with CAL FIRE and the county, to develop a plan that also has a public communication and outreach component, so that we're all working together in the same fashion to reduce or minimize fire hazards. And so that's why I introduced this, because I saw this as kind of maybe a starting point for a conversation around what are some of the strategies we might be able to employ to address some of the concerns. I think that the concerns are valid. It's just a matter of what are the again the resources that we have available to be able to address it, and how do we do it in a collaborative fashion amongst the county fire district.
Well, and David, I think what would be good is if we could kind of take this in two chunks. Ultimately, yeah, we need the plan to what entity is going to own it. Is it going to be the city that builds this comprehensive plan, or is it going to be the county? But that's going to take a lot of time. And I think that that's great to get there and build that. But I also think before we know it, fire season is going to be around the corner. If we can get some type of approval to do what I think is some basic risk reduction, and getting my fuels crew in there and taking care of some of the laddering fuels, cleaning up some of the areas that are closest to those structures to be an imminent concern. I'd like to find a way to get there to be able to do that before fire season, because I don't think we're going to have a comprehensive plan in place before then.
I agree, Chief, and
Great.
if there's support for that, you know, by your board and the city council, I think we can craft something fairly straightforward to provide the district the authority to get in there
Yeah.
and do the vegetation. You know, you let us know what you.
And figure out a way to bring that forth to the elected officials.
Yeah, that would have to be like a one-time kind of event in the process as this agreement, you know, greater agreement develops. And at the same time, it is a red flag for us in the city. This needs to be in order before we acquire any other open space for our residents. Because it sounds really nice and good, but there are many legal aspects of it that need to be reviewed also. So, so how would you, what is the direction then, David, to go ahead and establish an MOU perhaps for some preventive work by the chief and his crew, but it needs to have approval from the board, his board, and also perhaps someone in the county?
Yeah, I think it would certainly, I'd want to bring it to the city council for review and approval. I'm assuming, Chief, you want to bring it to your board, and you know, we could certainly outline, you know, what are the appropriate strategies and get that over to the open space. I think they would support that, you know, along with some just assurance that, you know, we're not going to affect endangered species and those kinds of things. But to get in there and be able to do some, you know, initial vegetation management activities to at least, you know, try to help address some of the immediate threats.
Yeah, I agree with that.
David, could I ask one quick question?
Absolutely.
What does the shared use agreement say? I'm sure there is one. I'm sure that we would have had that with the county, correct?
Well, we don't have a shared use. We have a pretty restrictive conservation easement, and you know, the open space district, you know, ultimately wants us to you know, develop a plan that you know, garners their approval as well. But I think given the conditions up there and the timing associated with doing this kind of planning effort, I think the chief's right that, you know, we need to come up with some simple steps that we can get their approval on, and you know, I think that if it was pretty straightforward, we could get their buy-in and support, and it usually just requires we submit a written document to them and ask for their approval.
Okay, thank you. I completely agree with Chief Jenkins. I was just trying to figure out if there's already something in place that we were kind of overlooking.
No, but that document that it's in place perhaps needs to be, what would I say, amended perhaps with some new information for future fire abatement. Okay, so you have clear direction, David? And if it needs to come to council, it has to come to council like ASAP, because we are going to be, we're already in a drought, so.
Absolutely. I think if we can take some steps to address, you know, some of Mr. Diggs' concerns, I think it would go a long way with the neighboring community that you know, whose homes sit next to the open space. And you know, it's we also have limited resources, but some of our park staff can do, you know, some of the you know, initial vegetation management activities, you know, near the trailhead. But we want to make sure it fits in with kind of what's really needed from a fire safe perspective, which we rely on the expertise of, you know, Chief Jenkins and his team.
Okay. So do you need a vote on that or just direction?
I think just direction.
Okay, and you have that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see that was a big update last time, and I guess this time too, with vegetation management. Anything else regarding vegetation management activities that we need to look at besides Mr. Diggs' concern?
Madam Chair, I don't have any other updates. You know, we didn't have the benefit of the work crews this year, but I think overall our team did a pretty good job of, you know, addressing the you know, the major vegetation management issues for the city, you know, other than really the open space.
Okay, Chief Jenkins, anything else you may want to add?
Yeah, just the last thing that I would add is between now and fire season, we're looking to do a few different control burns in areas outside the city limits, but that'll be visible. Once we do that, we'll be doing, you know, public messaging and announcements, but we're going to do some targeted properties, larger burns, you know, probably 50 to 100 plus acres before fire season. So once that gets closer, I'll be starting to the education process and let people know where we're doing that at.
And may I ask Chief Ferguson, do you work with Chief Jenkins on sending some of those Nixle announcements, or?
I certainly have no problem with that, and we'll coordinate on anything that needs to be done. I have no problem with that.
Okay, so Chief Jenkins, is Nixle something that you used before to inform the public?
We typically don't, as a fire district, use Nixle. Most of the messaging that's going out via Nixle would be a partnership with law enforcement, and they would send that out. The stuff that I send out, just fire updates and whatnot, I haven't had required messages needed to be sent out through Nixle. If I did, I would reach out with Chief Ferguson and we'd craft that message.
Yeah, because he's been quite helpful and in collaboration with some of the announcements to the community in general. And I think this would be helpful to keep people calm. You see how the social media gets going when they see a little bit of fire anywhere. So, okay, thank you very much. May I open this for public comment in terms of vegetation management? Irene?
No hands are raised, Chair.
Okay, so any other comments or discussion from anybody else on this now, this meeting?
And
So
Chair,
yes.
sorry, I will just mention that Nancy has joined us.
Okay, welcome, Nancy. Nice to see you in the meeting.
Good to see you too. Sorry I'm late. I was having some technical difficulties getting online. So pardon my tardiness.
Oh, that's okay. We can empathize with you. Okay, so on item C from the minutes, it talked about defining responsibilities of the fire district and city public works. Was there a follow-up to that?
Item C in the minutes from the previous meeting. I don't have any follow-up reports on that item.
Okay, Chief Jenkins, any comments on that?
Not at this time.
Okay, I just wonder if there is an established guideline on definition of responsibilities by our city public works and the fire district.
I don't know exactly what that is referring to be honest. I'm not sure what responsibilities we're talking about here.
Well, I think what happened here is that Chair Brigham talked about, inspection of fire hydrants and on private property, on public property, etc. And that you mentioned that there is a standard biannual compliance, and that it's been 100% compliant so far. So did you have any more comments on those?
No, I don't. Our relationship with Public Works is fine. We handle, our inspections on private fire hydrants on an annual inspection basis for follow-up. There's sometimes issues that come up with new development and responsibilities there that we make it the responsibility of the entity building complex. And I think some of that started on the South Cloverdale Boulevard some of the maintaining of hydrants in private properties.
Okay. All right, so the next on the minutes, David, did you have anything else, or anybody else have anything else on that?
No further comments, Madam Chair.
Okay, so then we'll need to go to Chief Jenkins for the update on fire season.
Not much of an update yet. We're not there. So we'll kind of see how things progress. Obviously we're drier than we hope to be for this time of year. It's hard to say what the weather is going to do. There's rain on the forecast. Right now we have minimal threat. But as things, dry, as we get into April, May, June, we'll kind of see how things develop. A little bit too soon now to say what fire season is going to be like.
Okay, I do know we have some pilots in training already, though, which is exciting to know we have the personnel. David, anything else? Any comments?
No further comments on this item, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then completion of the city's emergency operations plan. And I think you are going to talk about, David, about what is it called? The little life list?
Well, if you want me to step in here, I've actually requested that this be put on the agenda.
Okay.
Madam Chair, and if just real brief about it, I just wanted the board here to know that we have completed what I believe is a thoroughly comprehensive operations plan, emergency operations plan for the city. And one of the benefits to that is because of COVID, we've included the mass sheltering component of it, and it's also reflected in there. But most recently, one of the things that we've been really wanting to work on is an evacuation plan for the incorporated city of Cloverdale. We have completed that. The boundaries are identified. And I worked with Chief Jenkins on also establishing what we believe to be the best primary and secondary evacuation routes in each of those zones. So the object here now is to get this out to the public so that they are aware how the incorporated city is broken down, so that they can understand where they live within those boundaries and what is their best route for evacuation if it calls for that. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that that is completed. I think the next step for the EOP is to go to the council to take a look at it for approval, and then we can start distributing the evacuation plans as we see fit.
May I ask what is the distribution plan or the plan for information to the public?
Yeah, so we'll have to start with, first and foremost, really kind of going to Resilient Cloverdale to help in this process with each of the stakeholders in the COAD. I think that's going to be extremely beneficial when we talk about our vulnerable populations and vulnerable facilities. And then we can also put it out on Nixle, not only what the map looks like with the boundaries identified, but also the evacuation routes can all be, this is important information that's definitely worthy of a Nixle message. And then any other possible ways that we can put it out, I think we can certainly make that happen. But that is for sure one of the next steps before the fire season approaches.
Okay. Do you plan to have like a map to be
Yes.
displayed by City Hall and so on?
We certainly can do that. We've started with a couple significantly large for internal purposes, for the EOC purposes, but the maps that we can distribute, and I will certainly post one with those boundaries identified to the Nixle group, and then that would also go through the Resilient Cloverdale COAD group to put out. And so that won't be an issue, but I also will be giving a link to the Sonoma County's grid, the GIS map, which has the layers in it for the evacuation for the city of Cloverdale. So there's always that option too that people can look at. So we have a variety of ways for them to find it. But more importantly, we'll try to use the same platforms that we've been using to get all the other information out via Resilient Cloverdale.
Thank you very much. I think Resilient Cloverdale has grown a lot. and he has become an incredible resource for everybody in Cloverdale and throughout our immediate region. It's definitely going to reach many more people than traditionally because of the commitment of meeting every week and communicating with the different organizations. So I congratulate David for keeping us on our toes when it comes to that, and especially to you and Chief Ferguson and Chief Jason Jenkins, JJ. Okay. Anything else regarding this this plan?
I just want to weigh in and really acknowledge and congratulate both of the chiefs and the city manager as well for getting this plan updated, and especially to have the final evacuation routes. That is a huge undertaking, and having that complete, you're way ahead of the game, way ahead of a lot of cities and a lot of county areas. That's a big project, and I hope the community really appreciates all the work that you put into it, and having this information available. That that is really a life effort for all community members. So I really want to say congratulations, and I'm really proud of the work that the city has put forward and the fire district.
Thank you.
Let me ask Chief Jenkins, do we have someone from the fire district in our Resilient Cloverdale meetings?
I'm in there occasionally, but not on a regular basis.
Okay, it could be somebody else too. But we keep you up to date on what goes on there too, right?
Very, very well. Yeah.
Okay.
Kept up anyways, and from that group, they do a good job.
Okay, thank you. All right. So there are no hands raised, Irene?
No hands, Chair.
Okay. Any more comments or discussion that we may want to have? Any new issues that need to be put forth for future agenda items? None? Okay, none at this point. And well, if there's nothing else and no big announcements, Carol, do you have anything? Or Nancy?
No, but I think this is a very good discussion, and I look forward to continuing with this group.
Thank you. And Carol and Nancy, you're welcome to join us every Tuesday at noon or alternate so that you could hear what we are talking about and saying at Resilient Cloverdale. It's quite an energetic and fun group to see occasionally. And some of us every
Thanks.
week. Okay.
I'll talk to Carol. Work something out.
Yeah, so you could alternate, and it feels good to know that one of the most important parties in our safety network would be there represented. Okay, so Chief Jenkins, anything else
No, thanks.
that you may want to share? Anybody else? David or Kevin?
Madam Chair, I just want to acknowledge the work that Police Chief Ferguson put into the emergency operation plan. I think it was long overdue, and he brought his expertise to really bolster that plan and put all the latest elements into it. And I think it'll really help us respond to incidents. And then of course the evacuation zone maps is just so critically important. So we've made a lot of headway in at least the emergency preparedness efforts by the city, and I think it's just an opportunity for us to continue to collaborate and work together with the fire district. And be great partners in how we respond to emergencies, because it's not a matter of when, it's or not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and we'll certainly have to respond to the emergencies that come our way. So the more we work together, the better we're going to be able to respond.
Thank you. Councilmember Lance, do you have any comments before we adjourn the meeting?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, well, I am sure that if any items come about, we'll contact Irene for our next meeting. And I hope that next time we're still smiling and not struggling with something in the horizon. So in that manner, anything good to order, Kelly, Mr. Kelly? Good of the order?
Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Okay, well then, thank you for attending. Have a good meal, and we'll see you on Wednesday. City Council.
All right,
Have a
take care.
good evening. Meeting adjourned. Bye-bye.